Hello and welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host, Marie Kato. Voters in the Netherlands go to the polls on Wednesday for a snap election, one triggered by the collapse of its highly fragmented far-right coalition. For over a century, the Dutch have been governed by compromise, but the rise of populism has made governing almost impossible. We're joined by TVP World's reporter Michiel van Blommestein to break down the key players, the main issues, and the difficult road ahead of forming a government. Hello, and thank you so much for being with us.
Hi, Marie.
So, the parliamentary election was triggered when the government collapsed over immigration. So, in short, tell us what the core story is here and why does the snap election matter so much for the future direction of the Netherlands and Europe?
So, the Netherlands have historically always been like this moderating voice within Europe, within the international community at large. It plays a core role within NATO from its very start. It always chooses to be look for a middle road when debates are getting heated within Europe. Now, it's remarkable to see that the current Prime Minister, Dick Schoof, actually punched a bit above his weight when it comes to Dutch influence. But even then, Dutch influence has been waning since 2023 because of the sheer instability of this government. There have been constant struggles within the coalition to stay together. And, after 11 months, the coalition finally collapsed under its own quibbles. And now they are going to the polls again.
So what are the main issues at stake and who are the main candidates?
So basically there are four parties that are trying to become, let's say, the core of the upcoming government. Four parties actually that are trying to become the largest parties. Now, currently, Geert Wilders' PVV party is still projected to become the largest, but he's losing compared to 2 years ago. And the three other main parties have ruled out working together with him, owing to his previous engagement with governments, because it's not the first government that Wilders is involved in. He used to also support a minority government about 10 years ago, and that government he also stepped out of that government.
And what are the issues that people are voting for? What do they want this time?
So it's mostly domestic. I mean, much of it is focused on the housing crisis. A lot of attention goes to healthcare, but in the end, most of these issues are actually circling back to one main issue that is like a buzzword already within most of Western Europe, and that's migration. So, for example, the housing crisis is viewed very much through the lens of migration. We have too many migrants, and that's why we have a shortage of housing. Even though the situation is much more complex than that.
So what do people want to see done with immigration? We know that Geert Wilders has a very particular view on that issue, but what are the other candidates offering?
Well, the thing is that all parties basically are looking for a reduction in asylum seekers, a reduction of migration. However, each party has its own twist on it. Like you said, Geert Wilders has made this his core issue since he's been like a major player within Dutch politics. The thing is that, for example, he also is against what's called the spreidingswet, which is a law in which asylum seekers, migrants, are basically being scattered around the Netherlands, open more facilities to house them temporarily before it's processed. And he's been against that structurally. The other parties say that, listen, that way you just create problems because some of these facilities are like overflowing. You need to organize temporal facilities, and those are much more expensive per migrant.
We hear that the polls suggest that Geert Wilders' Freedom Party will likely win. the most seats again, but all major parties have ruled out working with him. So what does that mean for the potential coalition?
Well, first of all, it did have a major effect on polling, because the closer we got to the election, the more Wilders was seen to be losing in the polls. And that's because people are realizing that he won't be in the next government. So people are starting to think more strategically. Now, what does that mean for creating a potential coalition? Well, it's complicated because for example, the VVD, the party of now Secretary General Mark Rutte of NATO, has ruled out to work with the center-left, for example, as well. So the options, or the options are limited when you look through that. It might very well be that the VVD, in the end, is forced to work together with the center-left, if that comes to such a, if the results are like the polls currently indicate.
I wanted to ask about Henri Bottenbal and his recovery, because he seems to have sort of come forward more so on the political scene. What has led to that, and what does he offer in his manifesto?
So he's the leader of the Christian Democrats. The Christian Democrats in the last elections had a major slump, like a historic slump, and that's mostly owing to a splinter party breaking off from the Christian Democrats, which came up with a more populist platform, and eventually also joined the current government. Now, however, the voters seem to be very much jaded by this party, and now it's shrunk to almost insignificance in the polls, maybe 1 or 2 seats if they're lucky. So most of those voters seem to be going back to the Christian Democrats, which over the past 2 years have put themselves on this pedestal of being like the reasonable center, mildly conservative party, especially under Bontebal, who is relatively young and is a relatively fresh face within Dutch politics. However, lately he's been lagging a bit in the polls again because of some comments he made about Dutch freedom of schooling, which is a very peculiar institution. He basically said that freedom of schooling goes beyond, let's say, even discrimination. So he suggested basically that if a school wants to keep out students because of certain reasons, they should be allowed to do so, and that got him a lot of criticism.
Okay, now I want to move on to the Netherlands on the international stage. You interviewed the Dutch Foreign Minister, David van Weel. What did he say about the Netherlands, more so on the international stage, and especially in terms of their attitude, in terms of supporting Ukraine, their position in NATO?
So the Netherlands have been a very stable partner of Ukraine. They've been very active in supporting Ukraine, but also supporting the defense of the eastern flank. They sent ships to the Baltic in the program Baltic Sentry. Now you have the eastern flank. They've sent F-35. Actually, were involved in shooting down those drones that came from Russia. However, it should also be noted that when it comes to European policy, the Dutch have always been a bit of very much focused on fiscal discipline. So they are much to the chagrin of Southern and Eastern Europe, very much for containing the European budget, like making it smaller. And they are also very much, still try to position themselves as like the reasonable middle partner. Now, recently, of course, they've had some issues as well with China, for example. They to control, the Dutch government to control of a Chinese chip maker because of the danger, they say, of US sanctions.
Do you think that these elections will change the position that they take on these issues?
Maybe not much change the position, because the current government already is a technocratic government, even though a populist party a radical right party became the largest and most influential voice within the coalition, the government has been quite technocratic in that sense. So they've been pretty steady when it comes to their positions. However, their influence might, depending on the coalition, of course, might increase because they won't be as much bogged down by their own infighting. But that depends on what the coalition eventually will be.
Okay. Michiel van Blommestein, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And that's it for this edition of World Talks. Thank you so much for being with us, and stay tuned for much more on TVP World. Goodbye.